Alright, today we're going to look at surface area of prisms and cylinders. Now, the word surface area means the area of the surface of a three-dimensional object. Remember that area is always measured in units squared, so all of our answers today will have their units squared, unlike volume, which is units cubed. And there's a formula I want you to write above this in your journal. This formula will work for all right prisms and cylinders. I'm going to show you a couple of ways, but I want you to have the formula where you can see it in your journal. At the top of this page in your journal, I want you to write the surface area. Let me erase that. And we use S or SA for surface area. Surface area is equal to 2 times the area of the base plus the perimeter times the height. The big B means area of the base, and the big P means the perimeter of the base. So this capital P is the perimeter of the base, and the capital B is the area of the base. I will show you using this formula how to solve them. I will also show you another way, and we'll start with that for our first example. Under each tab, there is a problem that says model, and then there's a problem that says practice. We're going to do the model problem together, and I want you to do the practice independently. You'll need to pause the video when you get to that part. Okay, so under our first tab, surface area of a rectangular prism. We're going to determine the surface area of this prism. It is 12.5 inches by 4.2 inches by 8.1 inches. Now, there are 6 faces that are on a prism. We have the top, the bottom, the left, the right, the front, and the back. So I'm going to write those down. I'm going to use T for top and B for bottom. We'll have L and R for left and right, and then I'll use F and B for front and back. I'm just going to write this down because the surface area is the area of all 6 faces added together. Now, for the top of this, I'm going to shade it in red. The top of this prism and the bottom of this prism are congruent. Prisms have congruent faces. The top of this can be found by doing 12.5, that's the length here, and it is 4.2 wide, so we have 12.5 inches times 4.2 inches. That gives us a total of 101, I'm sorry, wrong one. That gives us a total of 52.5 square inches. Now, the back, or the bottom, because the top and the bottom are congruent, I would know that the bottom would also have to measure 52.5 square inches. So I've got the top, I've got the bottom. Now, the left and right are congruent. Over here, we see that this end that's shaded would measure 4.2 by 8.1 units, so it's 4.2 wide and 8.2 tall. Same thing with the left, they're going to be congruent. 4.2 times 8.1 gives us an area of 34.02. If the left and the right are congruent, then I know they're both 34.02. I've got 6 faces with 3 pairs of congruent faces. And then we're going to do the front and the back. The front of this box measures 12.5 by 8.1, so here's the front in green, and it measures 12.5 long and 8.1 tall. So our area of this would be 12.5 times 8.1, which gives us an area for the front of 101.25. I know if the front of my box is 101.25 square units, that the back would also be 101.25 square units. When I add all 6 faces together, this is going to give me the total surface area. So 52.5 plus 52.5 plus 34.02 and 34.02 for the left and right, and the same thing for the front and the back, would give us a total surface area of 375 and 54 hundredths, and we were measuring in inches. Since this is area, it's going to be inches squared. So this is one method of solving, is to just find each individual face and add them all together. Since there are 6 faces on a rectangular prism, I would need to make sure I add all 6 faces together. That is one way we can solve these. The other way is to use our formula. The formula we wrote at the top of our page is the surface area is equal to 2 times the area of the base, because in a prism, the bottom and the top are equal, so 2 times the area of the base plus the perimeter of the base times the height. Now in our picture, there would be 2 bases if we have a right prism, and then if we go around the shape times the height, it's going to give us the distance on all 4 sides here. So all 4 sides, and each of those 4 sides would be multiplied by the height. So we're going to fill in what we know for this. We know that our surface area is equal to 2 times, well, our base is 12.5 units times 8.1, times 4.2, there we go, times 4.2, so 12.5 times 4.2 gives us the top and the bottom. We have 2 congruent bases, the top and the bottom are congruent. The perimeter of the base, we're going to add up all 4 sides. We would do 12.5 plus 4.2 plus 12.5 plus 4.2. So all 4 sides added together for our base, and our height would be times 8.1. So now we can find our surface area with our formula. For our base, 12.5 times 4.2 is going to give us 52.5. And we have 2 bases, so 2 times the area of the base. If I know the top is 52.5 and the bottom is 52.5, I can multiply these. 2 times 52.5 gives us 105. That's our top and our bottom added together. And then the perimeter of the base, if I add up all 4 sides of my base and multiply by the height, that's going to give us what's called the lateral surface area, or around the shape. So 12.5 plus 4.2 plus 12.5 plus 4.2, around our bottom, around our base, is 33.4, and we want to multiply that by our height of 8.1. So around the shape, it would have a total of 270 and 54 square inches. So this part tells us the top and the bottom. This part tells us around the shape. When I find the perimeter around the shape times the height, that's called the lateral surface area. Now we're going to add these all together. 105 plus 270.54 gives us 375 and 54 hundredths, and we were finding area, surface area, so it would be inches squared. Now both strategies find the same solution. One strategy we used our formula, and the other strategy we found that all 6 faces and added them together. Alright, for our next one, Joanna is painting the outside of her son's toy box, including the top and bottom. The toy box measures 3 feet long, 1.5 feet wide, and 2 feet high. What is the total surface area she will paint? I'm going to sketch an example of this prism. So I have my length, my width, and my height, and we can use either method to solve this. I'm going to label this 3 feet long, 1.5 feet wide, and 2 feet high. And we have 2 methods. We can find the front, the back, the left, the right, the top, and the bottom, add them all up, or we can use our formula. I'm going to do both of them together with you. If we have our front and our back, for this shape, our front is 3 feet long and 2 feet tall. So 3 feet long and 2 feet tall, well, 3 times 2 is 6, and the back is also 6. So if the front's 6, the back is 6. Now, the left and the right side we'll do next. When we have our left and right side, this end over here measures 2 feet by 1.5 feet. So 2 times 1.5 gives us a total of 3.5 feet squared for the right side, and the same thing for the left side. And then the last one we're going to look at is the top and bottom. So here our top measures 3 feet long and 1.5 feet wide. So I'm going to go over here, top and bottom, 3 feet long times 1.5 feet wide. Well, 3 times 1.5 is 4.5. If I know the top is 4.5 square feet, the bottom must also be 4.5 square feet. So I can take all of my faces, there are 6 of them. I had 6 for the front and 6 for the back, 3.5 for the left and 3.5 for the right, 4.5 for the top and 4.5 for the bottom, and I can add all of those together. 6 plus 6 plus 3.5 plus 3.5 plus 4.5 plus 4.5 gives us a total surface area that measures 27 square feet. So the total surface area of this toy box is 27 square feet. She would have to buy enough paint to cover 27 square feet. Now we're going to do the same thing, but I'm going to use our formula. Surface area equals 2 times the area of the base plus the perimeter of the base times the height. Our base was 3 feet by 1.5 feet, so 2 times, well, 3 times 1.5 is length times width. There's how I find area of a rectangle. The perimeter of this base is 3 feet by 1.5 feet, so 3 plus 1.5 plus 3 plus 1.5, well, 3 and 3 is 6, 1.5 and 1.5 is 3, so my perimeter is 9. If I add up all 4 sides of that rectangle, 3 and 1.5, and then the height of this box, the toy box, was 2 feet high. So we can work this out using our formula. 3 times 1.5 is 4.5. So the base of my box was 4.5, or the bottom of the box was 4.5 square feet. 2 times 4.5 is 9. The perimeter of my base was 9 times the height of 2 is 18. That's called the lateral surface area, the distance around the box. And then 9 plus 18 is 27 square feet. Both methods get us the same solution. If you'll try the practice problems on example 1 and example 2 and pause the video, then we're going to move on to surface area of a cylinder. Okay, after you've finished your examples, your practice problems for example 1 and example 2 for your rectangular prisms, now we're going to look at the surface area of a cylinder, example 1. We're going to determine the surface area of the cylinder to the nearest tenth. We're going to use our formula for this. Now, looking at this can of paint, the surface area includes the top of the paint can, the bottom of the paint can, and the lateral surface area around it where the label is. When I hear lateral, I think label, so that's part of the can that we have to address as well. So top, bottom, and then around the label. Our formula for surface area of a cylinder is surface area equals 2 times the area of the base, because there's a top and a bottom to our paint can, and then the perimeter of the paint can times the height. Now there's a special word for perimeter of a cylinder. Remember that perimeter of a cylinder, or the distance around a circle, is called circumference, and circumference is equal to 2 times pi times the radius. And remember that the area of the base, well, the base for a circle, or the base for a cylinder, is a circle, which is pi radius squared. So we're going to take this information, we're going to plug it in to our formula. So our surface area is equal to 2 times the area of the base. Well, the base is a circle, so in for big B, we're going to put in pi radius squared. The perimeter of a circle is the circumference, so in for our perimeter of our circle, we're going to put in 2 pi r times our height. So our specific formula for cylinders is 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi r h, and we're going to fill in what we know. 2 times 3.14, the radius of this paint can is 8, so we're going to have 3.14 times 8 squared, plus our circumference, well, the circumference of the circle is 2 times 3.14 times 8, that's the radius, and the height of the paint can is 19. So 2 times 3.14 times 8 squared, well, 3.14 times 8 squared is 200.96. And then our circumference of our circle, or the distance around the circle, otherwise known as perimeter, is 50.24 times our height, which was 19. Now we can multiply this. 2 times 200 and 96 hundredths is 401 and 92 hundredths. Our circumference times our height for the label of this paint can is 954 and 56 hundredths. When we combine our top and our bottom of our paint can and the distance around the outside where the label is, we get a surface area of 1,356 and 48 hundredths. And it tells us to round to the nearest tenth, so this would be 1,356.5, and we're measuring in centimeters. Since it is area, it is centimeters squared. So for our paint can, we took our top and our bottom, those are the bases. We took the distance around the circle, that's the circumference, and multiplied by the height. Alright, for our last example together, we're going to find the surface area of a cylinder for example number 2. The problem says find the height of a cylinder that has a radius of 20 and a surface area of 9,700 square inches, round to the nearest foot. I'm going to draw a picture of my cylinder. Our cylinder has a radius from the center to the side of 20 inches. We don't know the height. It says find the height, but it tells us that the surface area is equal to 9,700 square inches, and we want to round to the nearest foot. I'm going to write my formula. Surface area is 2 times the area of the base plus the perimeter of the base times the height. So for a cylinder, more specifically, the area of the base, that's a circle, is pi radius squared. The perimeter of the base, well, perimeter of a circle is circumference, so that's 2 pi radius times our height. We do not know our height right now. We're going to be finding our height. Plugging in the information we do know. We know that the surface area is 9,700. So underneath the letters SA for surface area, I'm going to put in 9,700. I'm going to put in a 2 that was there in our formula. Pi is 3.14. The radius is 20, so I'm going to put in 20 squared. Then we have 2 times pi. Pi is 3.14. The radius is 20. And we do not know our height. Since we don't know our height, we're going to leave the letter H. We are looking for H. Everything else has been filled in. I've got 3.14 everywhere I saw pi, and I've got 20 everywhere we saw the radius. Now we're going to simplify this. We can use our calculator to help us. The area of the circle on the top of this cylinder is 1,256. So I've got 2 times the area of my circle. The circumference of the circle, 2 times pi times radius, 2 times 3.14 times 20 is 125 and 6/10 times our height. We are looking for H. We are just simplifying one step at a time. Now, since each base was 1,256, when I multiply that by 2, the two bases together would be 2,512 square inches. We still have our circumference or our perimeter, they're the same, times the height, and this has to equal a total of 9,700. Now it's just a two-step equation. I'm going to subtract and divide. Splitting the equation into two parts, if we subtract 2,512 from both sides, we find that 9,700 minus 2,512 is 7,188. If I subtract, they're going to cancel out on the right, and this has to equal my circumference times my height, or my lateral surface area. So the part that would have a label would have to equal 7,188 because I took the two bases off. We're going to divide both sides by the number in front of H. That's our circumference. If we divide by our circumference, we find that our height would have to equal 57.22, I'm going to write this over here because I'm out of room, 57.22 inches, but they asked us to round to the nearest foot, so this would be 57 inches tall for the cylinder. So we can use our formula to help us solve for missing information. Okay, if you will do the 2 practice problems for your cylinders, you have 2 examples that you've done. Now you're going to do 2 on your own. And we're going to start working on surface area of prisms and cylinders starting on Monday next week.